Hey, Alice. Hey, Eric. Everybody's connecting.
Well, hello.
Hey, Eric.
How you doing?
Hey guys,
Hey, Lydia.
how are you
Hey,
today?
there you are. Oh,
Happy almost Thanksgiving.
yes.
Thanksgiving.
Very different Thanksgiving.
Yes, that is for sure.
Yeah, we usually have about 20. I think we're going to have 4 this year.
It's a big difference.
Yes.
What, are you still cooking the same size turkey that you normally do, or did you get a much smaller one?
No, we bought a lot smaller turkey.
Yeah.
Even thinking that my daughter would be coming down from Erie, and now she's not coming down. So we're going to have turkey left over too.
I'm sure a lot of people will be in the same boat.
Yeah, it didn't stop the airports though. The airports are going crazy.
That's what I heard. There's like the most travelers since COVID hit.
Right. They said Sunday's even going to be worse. Travel day.
I'll be right back.
All right.
Mhm.
Eric,
Hi, Alice.
I don't know how to get my picture off of here. I didn't plan on being in the video.
There's a little camera on the button that says start video.
No, I don't see that.
If you touch your screen, Alice, it will appear across the top.
Across to the top.
Just
Yeah.
Oh, it
Across
says
the top,
leave. I don't want
one
to
says
leave.
video.
There's a blue box with 3 little dots in it. When you click on your picture, you'll see the little blocks with the 3.
Oh, yes. Okay.
Click on that
I
box.
mean, I don't think you need to have me there, right?
Not at all. You're welcome to.
You're welcome to stay.
Whatever.
Hey, Eric.
I don't know where the little hand is if I want to talk.
I don't think that they enabled it on this one.
Okay.
You should just be able to, there may be a button there that says chat, maybe? I don't know.
No.
No.
If she's going to be on the screen, I don't think she has to worry about it.
Yeah.
Well, I don't want to be on the screen.
Well, but you can.
I'm here trying to find out what is all happening as usual. I missed the last one, unfortunately.
Somebody's at my front door. Hey, Greg.
Hi, I'm all set now.
Uh-uh.
I hate looking at myself.
Sit back then, that's what I do.
Yeah, right.
Oh, someone's happy.
Alice, that's Dorothy.
Oh, well, hello.
She just came in the door. Yeah.
That's perfect.
Excuse me.
Is the sound of my TV coming over?
Not at all.
Okay,
Oh.
good. I didn't hear the news today, so I sort of wanted to catch up with the national news.
Mhm.
I'm sitting here.
Thanks for joining.
Thank you.
Hi, Greg. Hi, Jim.
Hi, Lydia.
Yeah,
Are we expecting Aaron today?
I think we are. I haven't heard otherwise.
All right. Here comes Colton.
Ding dong.
Hi, Kirsten and Colton. Happy almost Thanksgiving.
yeah.
Let's go ahead and get started, and if Aaron joins, he can hop in.
Yeah, I'm gonna text him real quick, so let's get started.
Is that okay? Okay.
Yeah.
There you
All right. We'll call
I'll let you
the.
guys know I might not be able to stay a long time. I'm feeling
Okay.
really ill today.
Oh no. Okay. Yeah. If you need to drop off, that's totally fine. And I hope you feel better soon.
Thanks.
Oh,
So we'll call the meeting to order 7:03. And we'll do a roll call. Rich
Okay,
Kraemer.
Lydia.
Oh, go ahead.
Okay,
I'm
I'll
here.
call them out. Lydia.
I'm Lydia Herring's here.
Okay, myself, Kirsten.
Here.
Okay, Colton.
Here.
Eric.
Here.
Greg.
Here.
Jim.
Here.
And we're waiting on Aaron. Okay, everybody's here.
All right. And I see we have one citizen on. Alice, do you have any comments before we get started?
no, because I did not see what the agenda was going to be. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay. You want me to read it to you?
Oh,
Or-
I'll just wait, if you don't mind.
wait.
and,
Yeah.
Whenever.
That
Thank you.
sounds good.
You want to share a screen, maybe? Just put it up as we're chatting.
Oh, cool. Okay,
Okay, there it is.
that's great.
So the first order of business is just to talk through the EPD proposal that we jointly received and the DCED map grant status. I reached out to Chelsea Puff at Strategic Solutions over the weekend to see if there was any updates from that she knew of as far as DCED's funding. And I did not hear back from her, but when we spoke with her in October, her and DCED, the point of contact was, I think, Nick McGrath. Nick had mentioned that DCED was waiting for funding and couldn't promise our award of our grant, and they weren't anticipating receiving funding till the end of November or December. I haven't heard any sort of update on that timeline. Kirsten, I don't know if you have a pulse on that, just working in the field, but
I don't.
okay. So
I believe we had initially thought we would hear like late in autumn, within the same season. So it should be time.
So if I do receive an email back from Chelsea, I'll forward it on to everybody. I CC'd Greg on that email originally, so he'll also see it come through. But I'll forward that on if we hear anything. Greg, I wanted to open it up to Ingram. The Crafton Planning Commission had discussed the EPD proposal and motioned for the Crafton Borough Council to move forward with awarding it regardless of whether the DCED funding comes through, and wanted to see on Ingram's side what you guys think, of it and where your council is sitting at the moment.
Well, here's my honest opinion. So I did bring it up at the last meeting, which was, I think, 2 weeks ago. And I brought it up during my general government committee report, which is generally when I bring up planning matters and zoning. And so I've been keeping them updated the whole time. And I brought it up, and there was kind of a quiet, crickety thing, Nobody said much. And then Sam spoke up and said he was a little confused as to why we need to, update our zoning, even though it's been decades, because there's no development. And I said, well, I explained again that it's future oriented, that, we need to do it now for development later on as development changes over the years. He wasn't too excited. He's not too excited about the idea of paying for it outright without a grant. And I asked the rest of the council what they thought, and nobody really commented, because I honestly think at that moment I thought, I don't think anyone really understands zoning. Honestly, I'm just going to say that. I think Sam does. I think he's truly, I don't think he's adamantly opposed to it, but I think he's somewhat opposed to it. And I don't think the rest of the council really knows what I'm asking for. So at the end of my question and answer period, I said, okay, guys, I think we really need to do this. I said it's a tremendous opportunity with Crafton, and not just Crafton for Crafton's sake, but in my opinion, Crafton with this particular planning commission and how forward-thinking you are and how cooperative you've been with us. And I think they got that part of it. So I said, well, I'm going to take the responsibility to somehow make you understand why we need to do this, because I don't really think they understand the long-term benefits of it. Even though I started talking about it throughout the entire TOD when I started with the TOD stuff with Connect.
Right.
And that is an executive summary. I just read it again today before the meeting. It's just full of zoning recommendations. They gave us straight up recommendations. And now we're embarking on a joint zoning initiative with Crafton. I don't really think, if it came down to a motion, I don't really know if it would be completely opposed by council, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
But I have to kind of get to the real core of why nobody's saying anything and why, and why I guess Sam in particular is opposed. That's kind of where I left it. I said, I don't think Zoom meetings are very, I know I'm talking a lot, I'm sorry. I don't think Zoom meetings are very conducive to selling things to council.
Mm-hmm.
I hate Zoom meetings. I thought that when we got together in the chambers, it was a lot more fluid and a lot more comfortable, at least for me. So I don't know if I need to maybe put something, a quick practice in writing maybe, or just have a separate meeting where we don't have a bunch of council business to take care of.
Mhm.
You know,
Well-
so that's where we're at. I wouldn't count it out, honestly. I think that, I don't think it's a lot of money. I don't think anyone thinks it's a lot of money. Everyone would prefer the grant, as you would, I'm sure.
Right,
But
right.
the possibility it might not happen, I think we need to be prepared for it. To me, it's just insane that there's even questions about it. But I need to look at it. You know, we passed our budget. I know we have the money. It's not in the budget. Some of the grant match money's in the budget. So, but I was asking for like 10 or 15,000 more.
Right.
I know we have that.
I think that's what the difference would amount to.
Yeah, it's crazy. I thought it would just be, yeah, that sounds great, but it really didn't go that way because nobody really said anything. And I think they're just kind of like locked on, I don't know what to say because I don't really know what
Yeah.
we're doing. But I know we have the money in capital money. We have money in the capital budget, if nothing else. And it's just a tiny bit of money that we need. So
You don't see any problem with Ingram passing the award of the proposal that EPD provided if the grant
no,
comes through, right?
they were perfectly fine with that, just based on my recommendation, or I mean, our recommendation. But
Okay,
yeah, they have no desire to go searching for more proposals at all.
right, okay.
So I
Lydia?
guess we're kind of halfway there, maybe 2/3 of the way there.
Well, I still think we have a good chance of getting the grant, so yeah, by all means, we can prepare, and if you want some input, feel free to shoot your ideas over. I don't mind, helping or having
Appreciate it.
our planning commission help, with the sales pitch or something like that. But just as far as the importance of updating zoning and what that does for a borough.
I think that there's a like kind of a blanket understanding that, zoning is just for new development, which it is, but new development doesn't mean we're going to start building high rises in the middle of our, residential streets. But like some of the businesses or some of the buildings on the main drags of Ingram, if they're purchased by a person or a developer, obviously zoning plays an important part, right? Even if they just rehab the building or the exterior of the building or the use, more importantly. So I just don't think they have a clue. I just haven't spent enough time explaining it.
Okay. Well, hopefully we'll hear from DCED either way and can make decisions accordingly.
Lydia?
Yeah.
That's Jim. And I'd like to thank Greg for his input on that. And I want to state that I agree with him. I think that there's a lack of understanding on the Ingram Council as to the importance of updating the zoning.
Yeah, and it's not their fault. I took full responsibility. I just kind of realized that when nobody said anything, and I'm thinking, well, they don't even know what to say. And
You
even
could say,
Sam, who's a great asset to our community, and there's nothing against him personally, but I also think he's taken a bit of a hard-headed approach because he doesn't understand it either.
well, you're being kind by saying it's not their fault that they don't understand zoning. But in my opinion, if you're a member of council, you should understand the importance of updating things such as zoning.
Especially for how old our zoning ordinance is.
Right. So
it's archaic.
So I think you're giving council a big pass on that.
Right.
They, as responsible members of council, should understand the benefits of updating your zoning as well as every other thing that helps to improve the community. So I just wanted to be on record as saying I'm supporting you, Greg. Let me know what I can do to help you, and I wanted Crafton and Lydia to know that.
Well, thank you.
Maybe there's a couple of salient points that we can come up with here. Does anyone know how old the current zoning is? And
I think it's from the 80s.
In Ingram?
Crafton's is from the 80s?
Oh, sorry. Crafton's is from.
Oh,
Yours is like 2006 or something. I can't remember, to be honest. Yeah, ours is 80 something, 82, I think 84.
So, you know, we're doing it because our 2000X, right? Our 15-ish year old version is out of date. A salient point might be a lot has changed since 1990 or before. And probably the best thing that I heard was from the solicitor when he explained that a lot of these references in here as things are passed are they're kind of dead ends, because you change something that reflects to something else that doesn't exist anymore. It creates a lot of holes and gaps and misunderstanding and misinterpretation within the existing ordinance structure. And because of that, it is a good idea, generally acceptable principle, to update it every X number of years. And he had a real number that wasn't X. I forget what it was. Maybe he said 10 years. I don't know. But it was a generally good idea in terms of maintenance and stewardship, that it should be, you know, relatively modern. And I think that anyone would agree that any set of codes, ordinances, or otherwise from the 1980s are not reflective of the current or modern world. So maybe that's a helpful, you know, point for them.
So yeah,
Point, Eric.
It is.
that's well said. And you know, in the new era of zone, which I honestly just can't stand this. It's horrible. You know, I just think it's an obstacle, because, you know, when I would go to council meetings, there would be the 20 minutes before the meeting. There would be obviously the rigid meeting, and then there would be the time after the meeting where we might hang out for a while, where I would have the opportunity to expound and explain in just layman's terms. But our Zoom meetings are like, you know, okay, camera's on, we're recording, let's go, boom, 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 business, business, business. And I've seen Sam twice in the last 8 months personally. I haven't seen anybody else at all. I mean, I was used to seeing them 2-3 times a month. So I got to get around that somehow. I mean, it's just where we're at. I don't think it's going to change that anytime soon. We mentioned on the council meeting that none of us really have any interest in meeting in person, obviously, because COVID's just getting worse. So I got to find a way around it. You know, I think maybe it's a separate meeting, so I can maybe just gather the general government committee, and maybe Jim and Aaron can join me, and we can just like all together just have a real frank discussion just about zoning.
That's a great idea, Greg.
We've had a lot of antics and discussion and drama around the Linden property. And we were able to have the planning commission was able to have an executive session with council, for the current council, to kind of give us the insights as to what had transpired with that particular property over the years. That maybe that's a good use of an executive session for you to, you know, just kind of quorum, say, hey, listen, you know, grab your choice of beverage. This is going to be informal. Let's take 30 minutes and just catch up on some of these things and why they're important.
Yep, perfect. So that's my next step, and I do apologize. I feel like sometimes we're dragging you guys down because you've been very active, and you know, we're trying. I mean, personally, I always feel like I'm too busy, but I know I have time. I just got to make time. So,
Well, I definitely think we still have a chance to get grant funding. It was just, this year's been strange with, you know, for many reasons, but I think even with the funding cycles. So yeah, I really do hope we still get funding, and there won't be much need to convince anybody, but it's good to plan for the contingency.
yeah.
Does anybody else have any comments or questions on this agenda item?
I think I would agree that we do have a really good chance at that grant. So let's just follow up on that. And then if we don't hear from that, then you know, I would join Lydia in saying that we're happy to support Ingram in helping you justify or help explain the value of the zoning.
Thank you.
But hopefully it doesn't come to that.
Right. Yeah, I'm not going to let $20,000 stop us now. Honestly, there's no way. I'm not going to let it happen. So I'm going to fight. Not fight, but, you know, fight in a good way.
There's only so much fighting you can do anyway on Zoom. Can't reach through that screen. Greg, can I open it up to you on Ingram updates?
Yeah, we haven't, the last time we met was to decide on a company to do our pedestrian bicycle plan. And we picked Michael Baker. And we're pretty excited to get started. So we're working out the contract details now with the solicitor, and we're going to start meeting in December with the major stakeholders, which would be the planning commission and probably Steve Palmer, our public works foreman, Sam Nucci. And then in January, after the holidays, we're going to pick a steering committee and start a steering committee meetings and public outreach and so forth. So I'm looking forward to it. And Kirsten will be involved, I think. Hopefully.
Yeah.
Yeah, you were on the team in the proposal, so I assume you'll have something to do with it. That's it. I've been thinking, before Aaron was on the council, on the commission, Jim and I got together on this was last year, on some priorities for Ingram planning, and I pulled those out before the meeting. So as we meet again on the Ingram side, I'd like to discuss those and throw them down. But I have a suggestion for tonight, maybe, is that we, as a joint commission, look forward to 2021 and maybe decide what we want to focus on in addition to zoning, so that we can, and I think eco districts is high up there, so we can kind of focus our efforts.
Sure.
Because the only way I'm going to get work done is if I know exactly what we're working on and I have like homework assignments between meetings, and I'll do the work. It would help if it was a little more focused. That's my only suggestion.
Yeah, I know we have been kind of talking about eco districts. There's a couple updates I'll fill you in on Crafton's side next on
And
that
just
front.
real quick, I would also like to settle on dates today for next year if we can. We can advertise.
So let's go through topics first. I think eco districts, definitely the zoning updates. We'll have a consultant be leading us through that.
Can I ask a kind of housekeeping question? We talked last time about starting a kind of brainstorm document on the eco district, and it's crazy how fast time goes, and I haven't added anything to it yet.
I don't think anybody has. I just created it.
Did you? Because I just looked and created one too. I didn't see one in there.
It's actually in the joint. There's a separate folder for the joint group, because our drive is separate from the drive that Ingram has access to.
Okay, that was going to be my question. I don't think I have that drive mapped.
Okay,
I'll follow up on that later. But there is a document, and we all have access to it.
Yeah, I believe I set it up correctly and made sure all the correct people were added to it. I'll make a note to just double check and maybe resend the link, but I believe I sent a link out after the last meeting.
You did.
So, but to Kirsten's point, that document will be where we can formulate our thoughts, and we were going to come up with kind of like a statement that we all agreed on, that we could use as, part of our pitch, essentially, to some of the stakeholders when we're bringing the idea forward to Rotary and the different people we named. There's a little confusion as far as what we even say when we're approaching these other groups. Just so we wanted to use that document as, codify all the ideas and just get one coherent statement. And
I think we referred to it as kind of a brain dump, because we recognize that the first place to start is just to get people kind of aware of it and get some buy-in into the idea of looking into it in the first place.
Right.
And so it may not even be one specific statement, but various different, benefits to it that might appeal to different people. But, ways for us to all understand what eco district idea would bring to Crafton and Ingram, and then ways to talk about it and describing that to other people.
Yeah,
think-
I think what
okay.
I just looking through my notes, we wanted to figure out how to describe what it is succinctly. So it's a brain dump, but we also wanted to just find have a succinct description, because there was a lot of lingo and everybody was kind of getting confused with some of the jargon. But go ahead.
Oh, I was going back to the, what we can do next year. I was looking at our list that Jim and I made, and, 3 of the 6 items are traffic calming, which has everything to do with the plan we're about to develop. Community aesthetics, which in my opinion is us mirroring your craft and visioning initiative, where we start to really look at different sections of the community and propose to the council, low hanging fixes, maybe low cost fixes, aesthetic and safety wise. And then zoning was the other one. In addition, we have code enforcement and commercial development. But so sounds like we're about to tackle, as a joint commission and individually, 3 of the 6.
From the
So,
comp plan.
yeah, but I think eco districts and zoning is going to keep us busy for a year for sure, as a group.
Yeah.
I would say one other thing I'd like to put on there, and this is tentative, is some kind of tactical urbanism or open streets event. And if we do that again, we could certainly look into trying to do it on a slightly larger scale and have a node in Crafton and a node in Ingram if you guys wanted to participate. I say that's tentative because it really doesn't work if people aren't able to go outside and mingle.
Yeah.
So that didn't happen this year, and it won't even be worth starting to think about until we have enough public health
I agree with
issues
you on that.
resolved. But we can leave that, we can put that on the list tentatively, because I think that would be a really good thing to do. Very generally relatively small and quick, kind of get people out and interested again. Be a good thing to do once we have the ability to get people gathering.
I'm looking forward to it already. Can't wait to gather with people.
I know.
And I know on Crafton's side, we're going to be working on there'll be different people working on it too, but there is a master parks plan that's going to be moving forward. So that'll take some of our attention as well on the Crafton side. So I think those 3 main topics are pretty good, considering we only meet quarterly, and we, each borough respectively has their own projects going on separately. But I think those are good.
Okay.
And then are you guys comfortable with the meeting quarterly, the 4th Tuesday of the month, 7 p.m., and then moving the December meeting to November? Just so that it doesn't conflict with Christmas.
I'm okay with it. I wouldn't mind a 6:30 start, but that's just me. It might be hard for some people to get there that early.
That's fine with me. Let me pose this, and I say this with the knowledge that I don't have as many meetings as some of you do. Are quarterly meetings enough?
Good question.
Well, I know with the zoning update, there will be a steering committee and there will be meetings separately for that effort. So whoever from this group is part of the steering committee, and I don't think it'll be all of us. I think there'll be some subsets, maybe 1 or 2 representatives from each planning commission on those steering committees, but that topic is going to get moved forward beyond us. You know, that project will get moved forward beyond just us. And then the planning commissions will definitely have input on it, you know, as whole groups. But I guess I would say, you know, I kind of like the quarterly as joint because our commission meets monthly regardless.
Okay,
So it gives us a chance to kind of talk about our own projects, you know, separately too.
okay, I'll just back up and recognize it.
I think,
Jointly, we're meeting quarterly, that's fine.
yeah, I think it's
And we
good for,
can-
it's good for the public meetings, but we could always spin off other meetings if we need to, you know? But I think
As long as
you
there's
know,
not a quorum,
right,
we could, yeah, individual, you know, mini groups could meet or call each other, or we, if we identify it early enough, we can always advertise that one of the regular monthly meetings for Crafton will be an extra joint meeting with Ingram.
Okay, well, it's interesting to hear you say, Lydia, that your planning commission meets monthly, is that correct?
Yep, we meet monthly.
Okay. Greg, I would think that you and I and Aaron could start meeting a little more often.
I agree.
Okay. All right.
So guys,
Okay, so-
Aaron and Jim, we'll get together soon and we'll decide on next, because we'll have to advertise those also, but we'll set those separately.
Okay.
And as far as the time, I'll open it up. Crafton, what do you think?
It doesn't really matter to me. I just throw it out there, just who bites, that's all.
6:30 works for me.
6:30 would be fine for me.
That's fine with me as well.
I can make it work. Doesn't matter.
Eric, you
I-
said,
I can make it work. It's fine.
okay.
Jim and
I-
Aaron, you good?
Yeah, that's fine.
I'm fine with that. We can make the joint ones at a minimum at 6:30 and then I guess Crafton, we can talk a different time about if we want to change our time for next year's meetings, or if we want to keep it at 7.
I think one of the things that's important, just based on my years in sitting through meetings for 50 years, is it's important to have a set start and a set stop for meetings. That way people know what they're obligated to.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the guys that used to work as a consultant in my company used to say, you have to honor the people that show up on time.
Mm-hmm.
Which that has meant that you start on time. If people are late, that's on them, but you start the meetings when they're scheduled to start and you end them when they're scheduled to end.
Mm-hmm.
I just put that out there for all of you to process.
Yeah, I think makes a lot of sense. Speaking from somebody that's creating agendas, I don't know exactly how long things are going to take. And sometimes there's participants that kind of add information or kind of go on a long-winded, discussion or explanation. And sometimes time kind of gets away, but you kind of keep trudging through to get to the end of the agenda. So it's a bit tough to have a real exact end time, but I'd say, 2 hours is about the amount that we should be anticipating any monthly meeting to be going to. Sometimes ours go beyond that, but it's mostly if we're planning for a public workshop.
2 hours is long.
It's a long time. Yeah, I'd
most of the
say
meetings
between 1 and 2 is,
Right.
is
Once you
is
pass the
typical.
1 hour, or how much does the backside, manage to handle what's going on up top? You've passed a lot of people's ability or desire to absorb. So if you, Lydia, take you for example, if you're the one that's going to run the meetings, you have a little bit of difficulty in being able to say, okay, we're going to give you X to talk about that, and then that's it. So yeah, there is a burden on you, the person that's running the meeting, but it's also honors everybody else in the meeting. And the best meetings are the ones that are run efficiently, and everyone gets to say what they have to say, but they say it in an appropriate amount of time, and then you move on to the next issue.
Yeah, I definitely hear you.
Yeah, I mean, then people are eager to join those meetings and eager to participate.
Yeah, thanks, Jim. I think
Okay.
I think it's a good point. I think we set times, we set the focus areas. Was there anything else, Greg, you wanted to go through for Ingram?
No,
Okay.
no, there's nothing else. Thanks.
So I'll move on to the Crafton updates. One thing I wanted to mention, Phil Lavasser had talked to Crafton only in the October meeting and relayed that he and a couple others had gone to the borough of Etna, actually specifically to get a tour about how they became an eco district. And he shared some information I wanted to bring forward to Ingram as well. So he said it was extremely impressive, and that there's like a sustainability coordinator. I'm not exactly sure if that's the official title, but it's something like that. And they gave a tour of certain buildings and kind of described how Etna went about funding the eco district work. And one of the main funding mechanisms that came up was this was PADEP's Section 319 Nonpoint Source Management grants. And they used a 319 grant, which enabled them to redo their whole corridor. And that grant paid for a majority of the stormwater infrastructure that they put in. So I did send out this Section 319 PDF that just gives information about what the program funds and what types of projects fit in. I didn't know if, Ingram was aware of that this type of thing existed, but I know Crafton Council is interested in coordinating with the Crafton Planning Commission to maybe come up with some strategies on what types of projects to pursue grant funding for through Section 319, mostly having to do with stormwater.
Greg, I know you're familiar with this, and you've talked about this before, but just to recap for anybody else who missed this, the Etna stormwater improvements were also used as one of their, they really focused on their streetscapes, and they used it also as a tool for their Main Street revitalization. So they really got it to do multiple things. They used it, kind of as a marketing tool and as a general, downtown attractiveness, and, fairly directly investing in the streetscape, investing in the infrastructure makes a viable business environment for local businesses, brings in more people, and gives them a better, a safer investment for opening new businesses and running their businesses. So it served multiple purposes for them. It wasn't just about stormwater. It was really a Main Street, like downtown revitalization driver as well.
Plus, any community that falls under the El Casan region and it does anything with stormwater improvements is MS4. So that's an MS4 improvement, which is huge. And I was just on the phone today with our engineers. Gateway's still
Yeah, they're still ours too.
So that they said they're absolutely sure there's a new consent decree coming, a new version coming next year, around next year. And more reductions in stormwater. So any improvements, whether it's pipelining or green infrastructure or anything like that is a plus.
Yeah, I think I saw something in here where I thought I saw something about MS4 being considered separately. But yeah, ineligible. So this program can't specifically fund separation, storm sewer separation, but there's a lot of like tangential stormwater type things that could be done through this grant that isn't physically separating the stormwater and sewage pipes. But I just wanted to call that to your attention since you mentioned MS4. So I sent this document to everybody. Hopefully, Ingram, you're able to look at it, maybe bring it to your council, see if anybody's interested or if it even makes sense for Ingram. I know this program also covers things like stream bank revitalization, and Crafton is considering doing some improvements along the Chartiers Creek area of our borough the borough property there near Chartiers Creek. So this might tie in a couple different ways for Crafton. I'm not sure if it's as relevant for Ingram, but definitely wanted to bring it up. One of the other things I had kind of alluded to earlier was that we received a Master Parks grant, I think with an award for $26,000. And Crafton has some history of a Master Parks plan. I think it was done about 10 years ago. And they want to improve upon it and include that whole CIT ball field area along the creek in the planning process. So that's coming up. I think there'll be a separate steering committee created for that. But Rich or Colton, do you have any updates from any of the borough meetings on that? On when
They
that's
did
going to
bring it
start?
up at one of the meetings, and what they did talk about is the master plan that they were talking about. They were talking about a couple areas, redeveloping and revitalizing the area by the ballparks where Crafton would at some point take over maintenance of the CIT fields. And then along the creek area and back by the shed, by our maintenance sheds, we would be putting in new sheds and also possibly putting in a couple fields there, maybe a deck hockey field, maybe another soccer field, and possibly a third field, with the area between it possibly having like a park or parkette with slides and swing sets, and so it would attract the people in there and also address our creek area there where we have an entrance already set up there between a couple of ball fields. We can walk up onto the trail to address or show people a way to get to that trail and also be able to use that trail a little more.
Any idea of start time? Did you hear that? Whether they
No,
said?
because what they also were talking about is the park plan would either concentrate in that area, or I don't know exactly how or what partner we'd have there. I think Phil had mentioned Elk Sam may be helping us. The area at the bottom of the sled riding hill, which used to be a softball field for girls, they're talking about putting something there. Also, maybe moving a football field over to there, or possibly putting something else there. But they would need that dredged a little more, dug out, and get the water, or the water that collects in that area taken away from there. And I think that's why Phil said we'd be working with Elkasand and figure out a way to dry that area up a little bit. And also more concentration in the existing parks where we'd put, would talk to the public and put more in for the people, to use parks.
They got funding though for a parks master plan, right?
The
That would
26,000.
Yeah, that would address, at a community level, all the different things that would not be a specific project, right? It would identify various different projects to then pursue.
Okay, Colton, were you at that meeting when they talked about that? Did they say that when they said they were only getting it written, right? They were having somebody write up or modify the plan before they talked about putting any part of it into effect?
Yeah, that's what I thought. That's what I got out of it anyway.
Right, so our version of what our parks master plan is gonna be is still, I guess, in idea phases, and they want somebody to get that written down so that we know where to concentrate the money and what parts of the plan to use, or
Did they mention-
what parts the people would be interested in.
Did they mention a consultant, or are they having?
I think they mentioned the
Alcasand,
Gateway
right?
Engineering would be doing a lot of that work for us.
The entire point of this is to have the planning commission spearhead the writing of the plan.
I would strongly push against having Gateway Engineers do the master plan, particularly,
No,
not against them at all, but particularly if it's meant to be an in-house thing that's not being done with public input. A master plan should be done with public input, whether it's a parks plan or otherwise.
If you want me to, I can reach out to Phil, because I said I do talk to him a little about what we were talking about already and see exactly who's going to, clarify exactly who's going to put this together for us, or what we need to get put together yet.
I can ask too. I didn't attend the last meeting, but I didn't realize that they were moving forward to that point yet. So I'll reach out and ask him. I would
Right,
hope
and
that
like I said, they said they were going, he had mentioned that they were going to have somebody put our ideas down in writing, and I may be wrong with Gateway Engineering, but they were looking for somebody to write all that down before they consider what parts they were going to use, really concentrate the money on.
Yeah, no, that sounds like the right way to do it. So thanks for bringing that up.
Okay, the other part that while we're talking about, the other part they were talking about too, Kirsten, and is also connecting the trails. The idea of connecting our trolley trail to the Chartiers Trail with the use of possibly sidewalks in between, directing the people down certain sidewalks in certain walk area or bike and walk areas to get them to the next trail to be able to pick up and go along another trail.
Yeah.
And then Phil Lavasser had relayed that that Gateway was putting together a multimodal grant as of last month, and I think it was due November 7th or 9th. I didn't hear back from Phil whether that was submitted, but
I didn't hear anything either. I know that it was mentioned in the last meeting that they might be trying to connect with the Planning Commission to have us provide some support, and I didn't hear anything. I don't know if anyone else did.
And Kirsten, can you remind us all what those types of grants do?
Well, because I didn't hear from them, I don't know the details of the grant they were going after, but I assume that it's one that I've seen elsewhere. That would probably have been about funding a multimodal study that would get a consultant to come in and kind of similar to what we were just saying with the parks plan, look at overall what the different areas are that need to be addressed and put together a list of recommendations for projects to then pursue to kind of connect all of those dots. Multimodal grants usually focus on connectivity type projects, walkability and biking type projects where we need to expand sidewalks, trails, trail connections, accessibility, ADA accessibility, entrances, wayfinding, lighting, anything that makes walkable connections and bikeable connections, either more present or safer where they exist already. Those kinds of projects.
Thanks, Kirsten. And then we've also still been continuing our workshops. I think last joint meeting, we had maybe completed the first introductory workshop. We've had 2 since, and we're planning to have at least 1 more in the immediate future, specifically regarding our Crafton Boulevard streetscape project. There's like a sewer separation happening in that road, so we're going to be looking into, while we have the road torn up, what else can we improve? And Crafton, did I forget anything else as far as updates in the last few months?
Yeah, I think that's what we've been doing. Those meetings were pretty well received, and I know those are also on our agenda tonight. So I don't know how much detail you want to get into with those, but we did have. But that intro meeting was in August, and then we had one that was more focused on vision. That was just kind of like an interactive session, but community-wide, to let people think about the various different possibilities and ideas that were out there, and then share their own ideas and thoughts. And then this last one in the end of October was more targeted specifically on one area, which is a property that's controlled by the set of properties that have varying levels of ownership between the borough and the school. But they were all pretty well attended and well received.
So I'll move on to the September joint meeting minutes. I had sent those on by email. Does anybody have any comments or suggested changes?
No, motion to approve as is.
I'll second that.
I agree.
Okay, September minutes pass, huh?
Can we go through? Jim, do you agree?
Yes, absolutely.
Kirsten,
I agree.
Colton,
I agree.
Aaron,
I agree.
and Rich, I guess.
Yes.
Okay. I will, so we're going to move on to Crafton only things. So Ingram, you're welcome to stay on if you'd like to, but I wanted to open it up. Does anyone have any comments before Ingram potentially drops off? Even citizens?
I'm good to go. Thank you, Lydia. Good job
Thank
on
you, Jim.
facilitating the meeting.
Thanks.
Greg and Aaron, talk to you guys later.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Thank
Have
you.
a great
You too.
holiday.
Thank you to all of you.
Thanks.
Bye.
Hey, guys, bye-bye.
I think I'm going to go to, I just want
Thanks,
to
Greg.
confirm, fourth Tuesday of each month. So I have March 23rd, June 22nd, November 28th, and November 23rd for next year.
I will put together the dates and send them out. I don't have a calendar up right now.
Okay.
That, I'm assuming that will mean that we'll have another meeting the Tuesday before Thanksgiving. I don't think that's a problem for any of us right now. No one's going anywhere. But does anyone have any concern about that?
Oh, I think we can shift it.
I don't personally. I just want to
Yeah,
bring
I
that
don't.
up.
I don't really travel Thanksgiving.
I travel, but always leave Wednesday or Thursday morning.
I can make it work if we travel. Not a big deal.
Okay.
All right, I'm gonna cut out then. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, Greg.
Happy
Thanks,
Thanksgiving.
Greg.
You too.
It's good, Greg.
Okay. So if there's no comments from citizens, we can move on. Let's pull up August and October's.
Motion to approve.
I'll second.
I agree.
I agree.
I agree.
Okay, I have October's up now.
Motion to approve.
Second.
I agree.
I agree.
Okay.
All right. Great. So workshop 3 takeaway review. I had put together a bulleted list, and then Kirsten put together this PowerPoint set that incorporates the takeaways with the actual images that she had recorded during the event. And the back slide has the whole list again as a summary. I don't know if everybody else had a chance to review this, but I can go slide by slide.
I also had a question on this. We did have a survey up, right?
We did.
Did we receive any additional comments
Yes.
since this happened? Because it'd be nice to incorporate it, particularly if there are any different things that were not already reflected here. Do we need to incorporate that?
I think if they're specific to Linden, we should.
There was nothing materially to add to this.
Okay.
Are those answers recorded anywhere or shared anywhere?
They're shared with us on
Yep.
the drive. Let me come in here. This planning commission survey. Responses. So this is everything from the beginning on. So I guess we've had 95 total responses. Eric, you're more in tune with this than I am, but there's some graphs, and then I think we can read.
So I can just walk you through it. The first couple are basically, do people generally agree? So if you scroll back to the top, I'll show you the sections and how it's organized. So the Thrive plan is broken down into the component pieces and basically asking the public, do you generally agree with it? Do you strongly agree with it? In general, everyone agrees, and most people strongly agree with each of the priorities from the CI plan. With random outliers of people that I don't know what's wrong with these things, because their commentary doesn't really jive with the strongly disagree. Anyway, so deteriorating properties, connectivity. You'll notice that column 5 is the strongly agree. So if you go down past connectivity to the next one, you'll see that the theme continues. Economic development, the theme continues. You know, obviously people most strongly agree with economic development, followed by communications, right? There's clearly issues from the public's context of how the borough is communicating with its constituents. So you can see, again, everyone either agrees, most people strongly agree with how these convey our core values as a community. And then moving into the planning section. This is a breakdown of how people interact with this. Somebody obviously gets their information from Brad. That was my favorite response. The mailed newsletter is not something that is the same as some of the other things that are here. The Crafton community newsletter is obviously the overwhelming #1 thing, and the thing that 67% of people responded to, I forget what it is. It gives you some idea what people are interacting with. You can zoom in on the individual data and it pulls it up, but I wouldn't.
That's posted on the Google Drive.
This is the website. It's shared with us.
It's been shared with each of you. Yep. The community workshop series.
You go to in your drive and then shared with me. It should
Just search for planning survey and it'll pop up in your search.
that one that you weren't sure of what the label was is actually the website.
Yeah, I knew it was something obvious, but gives you some idea there. Nothing there came out as surprising to me, but it does show that it's a good mix. If you scroll back up to it, what I found was really disappointing is the fact that go to the 32%, the third one down. Is how low the council meetings do show up, right? I was not surprised by it, but and it is what it is. Savvy Citizen, I think, is an opportunity for improvement. How social media is beating Savvy Citizen when the borough controls it. Again, these aren't my bailiwick to opine on these things. They're simply how people are interacting with borough information. But I thought that that some of that was a little disappointing, frankly, but surprising nevertheless. Okay, and the community workshop series, people clearly feel that it was a pretty good idea. There's one person, again, that's really opposed to it, right? Strongly disagree. One person or whatever, three responses. Should they continue beyond October? Because remember, we launched this early on. Again, people either agree or strongly agree with a couple of naysayers. You always have that. And then the time and attendance was well put as Wednesday evenings. Clearly, there was a couple other random things that people thought, 8 p.m. on Wednesday is different than 7 p.m. on Wednesday for one person. But it gives you some idea. 7 o'clock on Wednesday night is a good date and time, it seems, from the overwhelming majority. Things fall apart a little bit after this. You can kind of see that the downtown library, nobody is interested at all in talking about downtown and library as compared to infrastructure, as compared to the Linden property. And then the parks falling in second place. They seem to be everyone's third choice, if you will. But it was, I think, telling that I think there's confusion as to what Crafton downtown is, what Crafton library could be up to, especially amidst the pandemic. So again, not terribly surprising. And then the feedback, I think that if you have not read this feedback, I've been trying to think of creative ways that we could respond to this. I don't think that each one of these warrants an individual response. I think this is feedback for us. We really do want to hear from the public. Some of this is things that you've heard at council meetings. Some of these things are not intended for the planning commission. They're intended for the antics of the council. So if you scroll down a little bit and then go into the embedded carrot, you can give us all the full screen of this and people, yeah, maybe too far, but they start acting like a council and up name calling. We're not the council. So it gives you some context of what these things are. They're here. Some of these things are useful. Some of them are not particularly useful. But it's all very much appreciated that people took their time to come out and complete this. So I would encourage everyone to take a look at it.
Well, thanks for that update, Eric. I'd seen it after the last one, but I didn't realize that I hadn't seen the link. I didn't realize I could still see it live. So
it's still live. I haven't taken it down yet. Some of the big downfalls of this are in the next section. We are clearly not appealing to renters in Crafton. They could care less about us, apparently, because very few renters have responded.
Mm-hmm.
How many years have you lived in Crafton is pretty much all over the map. I think we have a good, if you go to ClearGov, this is pretty representative of the Crafton population, skewed towards the middle of the curve for how long people have lived here. You can, see a reflection of yourself, I'm sure, within this. And then, family and household size, there's a great mix, I think. If you kind of understand how that's broken down, how many people are in various ages in the families or households, I should say, I shouldn't say families, that are here. And then the last part changed significantly after the last meeting. After the workshop, we had, I would say it was grossly skewed to higher tax brackets, to a higher income threshold. And now between the, what is the low side 16% of this, the 50,000 all the way up through the unlimited ceiling, 50,000 up to $200,000 is certainly in line with the ClearGov demographics of Crafton. So, I felt that was a good representative sample. So really our biggest, from a marketing and outreach perspective, our biggest failure is in addressing the rental market. I'm not sure that there's really anything that we can do to change a lot of that. That's just kind of the nature of these surveys are done. So it gives you, I think it's good contextualization. It's very reaffirming. I think that the feedback is mostly fair and honest. Some of it is just, people outlandishly crazy. But they're certainly welcome. We ask for their input as unfettered as possible.
Mm-hmm. And maybe we can do a better job marketing somehow. I mean, we definitely hit the website, Savvy Citizen.
I never saw the actual link on Savvy Citizen.
For Linden?
No, for the survey.
Oh, for the survey. I don't know if they sent it out.
No, they didn't.
I didn't request that they did specifically. Did you?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Many times.
Okay.
I also felt that the fact that Crafton Borough has taken a handle in social media in other instances that I felt were less than appropriate. The fact that no one from council that has that kind of following elected to share the survey, I think was a major disappointment to me. It shows that they don't value what this was capable of collecting. I think that the other piece to it was the borough has taken a position out on some of the social media sites, and again, by not doing it, I think that was a miss. So having 100 people is decent, but I think that that was organic through this group. As far as I'm concerned, that was not something that was done well with the support of the Borough Council.
I can request that it gets sent out through Savvy Citizen. It's no problem. We're going to be advertising all of the meetings anyway, so it's a great thing to incorporate with that same notice. So I can make that request. Hopefully it'll be honored. So, but the to Kirsten's point, there was no specific comments geared toward Linden that were substantially different from what we gathered in the workshop takeaways.
Said nothing material different than what your reaction was.
So should we go slide by slide? Did everyone have a chance to look at this? Does anyone have any comments or proposed changes to any particular slides?
The slides themselves are exactly what was in the workshop. And then that final slide is exactly what you had recapped, Lydia. I didn't change any of that text.
Mm-hmm.
So if anyone has reviewed any of that content, it hasn't changed.
So I guess my question to the group is, do you feel that there was opposition to development?
I would say yes.
I think there were a couple different degrees of opposition, but we heard pretty strongly that there's a lot of interest in keeping park and open space there. And then, a couple of different degrees in terms of, is it all park and open space, or is it park and open space plus some development? But certainly some park and open space was strongly backed by everybody, or overwhelmingly.
Does anyone feel that our presentation was biased?
I wouldn't say so.
I don't.
No, I don't think so.
I think it turned out really well.
And does anyone feel that we gave a good enough context of what this represents with the greater vision for the Crafton community?
Say that one more time.
Did we give enough context of what this development represents in the greater context of ideas and thoughts of general aspirations for what Crafton can be? Thrive, specifically.
I would say
I would say that we did not give as much context as I think we could have, but I think we were right to do that, because had we given more context and pushed people, gone more into discussing what this could be for the community, we would have been taking more of a stance on, the development plan that's proposed versus not. I don't think we could have been as neutral as we were and taken that type of conversation further.
I think it also would have made the meeting a lot longer. Our first two public workshops were basically that. It was building context. I know not everybody attended all three, but they are recorded, and hopefully if anybody felt they were lacking context for Linden, they could go back to our first two workshops and get a handle on what types of ideas and thoughts we have. What is that question getting at?
I'm just curious as to how you feel about it collectively.
How did you feel about it?
I was not not happy with it. I felt that we came off from a position of bias in a strong manner. We over-focused the role of a gas station in the context of development. We did not correct the concept of the preservation of green space. Currently, it's not green space. It's locked. It's a field that's been locked since Howard Stilley was a superintendent of Crafton School District. That's been 35 years. So I don't think that that we contextualize what the opportunity is, and I do not have a handle on from this meeting whether I can say a recommendation that Crafton should pursue purchasing the property. Crafton should pursue the intergovernmental cooperation agreement. Crafton should do nothing. Those are really the only three paths forward. And I don't know that we really unpacked for the community what doing nothing represents and what the school district will in fact do. I don't know that we really contextualized how this can fit into the #1 priority that people have from the survey, which is economic development, in terms of alignment to the hottest piece of real estate that this town can still lay claim to and develop. So I don't feel like I can make a recommendation out of the workshop.
Do we need to? I thought we were just passing along our findings.
Yeah, I don't think that it is appropriate at this time for us to make a call on whether something should be sold or not.
Mm-hmm.
I think what we should do is pass on what we heard. This was a communication. It was a workshop focused on establishing communication. And I think that we can pass on the communication we heard.
Yep. Mission accomplished.
I think that personally, if I were to be asked for a recommendation on what should happen with that land, I would recommend to council that they engage in more rigorous public discussion and more workshops of that format or of a format of their choosing, but they should engage in more of this type of discussion with the community before making that decision. That would be my recommendation. Personally, I don't know if we all want to make that recommendation or if we want to just simply give them the collection of input that we received as a show of what this communication was able to establish.
I don't disagree with that, mainly because, I mean, clearly there was a lot of opposition to the current plan that's on the table, or at least available. Clearly that's not what's wanted here, so I wouldn't say I disagree with that at all.
I feel that council in the last days leading up to the public workshop made it pretty clear that they, didn't want us interfering. And I would prefer to pass along information without a recommendation as far as what they should do. I don't think there's not a specific plan that we've been asked to review and provide a recommendation about. This information might kickstart another round from the developer if the school board wants to pass along the information. And then it kind of starts it all again. And it's all up to council whether they even want to put the intergovernmental agreement on the agenda again. They've put it on twice and declined to vote twice. I know for sure the public input wasn't, we want the get-go tomorrow. That wasn't the overwhelming consensus. So, it definitely wouldn't be, if we were to recommend, the recommendation based on public input right now wouldn't be, sign the intergovernmental agreement. But I'm not sure that wasn't the goal of this event, to come up with a recommendation on that.
If we feel
Nor
that
do I think council wants to know what we think about the intergovernmental agreement. It's up to them.
I've kind of gotten mixed signals on what they think of us having this this workshop and our involvement here. I've gotten some positive signals also. And so perhaps what we'd like to do is give them this summary with an offer to host another session in the future when they're at a point that they're ready to collaborate on one, or there is something, there's a decision that they're ready to bring to the table, or they're willing to support an alternative and let us do another public session where we can be a little bit more open about discussing particular possibilities. Because I think back to that idea of bias, we were trying to be very unbiased when we did this workshop and not push one way or the other for this is what could happen if this happens, or this is what could happen if that doesn't happen. We were trying to really let it be very open and let people bring to the conversation what they wanted to, which meant that we weren't really guiding the conversation. We could offer to council to do another session in the future if they would like us to continue helping be that liaison with public communication.
I would like that approach. Can we go down the line? Colt, what are your thoughts on that?
I agree. I think that sounds good to me.
Eric?
I disagree. I'll just point out the first sentence is, I'll contest that to the group. We do not very much desire for a gas station convenience store. I would go so far as to say that we heard zero desire for a gas station convenience store.
Okay, so any desire?
We heard no. However, out of the 2 dozen attendees, there were only 2 that were strongly opposed to the development. Only 2.
Because usually we put the library with it, and the libraries are all closed.
Most of the comments of opposition were more so trepidation about what it would have. The features, the light pollution, the noise pollution, the traffic. You know, if you're going to develop it, please be mindful of the greater community needs X, Y, Z.
I'll let you talk.
My biggest issue in terms of the bias is we don't hear any desire for it. I don't know who is going to embrace change in that manner. You know, I'm very much opposed to the development. I think that we're conveying a recommendation for them to really benefit from. So we heard no desire for it. We heard little opposition against it.
Do you want to, should we hold on providing this until we have another chance to review the text? I mean, this is shared in Drive. Do you want to take a stab at rewriting some of the points?
I'm in the document right now. I wanted to have the conversation with you all, with each of you, about my takeaway around bias, because I mean, I'm opposed to it, but my opinion doesn't mean anything. I'm wondering, did you hear what I'm hearing in terms of the way that this is contextualized? Are we biased to it?
I mean, I think it's hard to be completely unbiased, but we presented information with, you know, to the best of our ability without, you know, hinting at, you know, any personal agendas. I think we provided a balanced set of information and honestly opened it up for many more ideas than even are on the table at the moment.
I guess, you know, I'll go back to it. Did we hear opposition? Did we hear overwhelming opposition to the development that we went over?
We hardly went over it.
I would say that we heard opposition, but I would not say that we heard overwhelming opposition. I don't think we discussed it in enough detail to be able to say something that strongly.
We showed like one image of the rendering. We didn't even go through all the components that is the current development on the table.
I haven't had, I see people out walking more.
Are you talking,
I
Eric?
just think putting in language like that, I think is biased. That starts to put in our bias. I don't like that development either. And I'm trying to present it fairly and present the feedback fairly.
Her daughter-in-law and her
Yeah, I would recommend that we pass along the recording to anyone who's interested, because I can't sign off on this where that first sentence in any way, shape, or form is truthful, because out of the 24 people that were there, the majority of the comments were around the fact that if you do develop it, please include these features more so than, make no mistake, because, I really think that, and hope that our council has the vision to return to the community, ask them, because one of the things that I thought was interesting that is a great through line from last December to this October was there was minimal but strong support Crafton taking possession of the entire property and doing something for the benefit of the community there, whether it's park, whether it's, there are various ideas I think that you heard, but it would involve Crafton taking possession of it in a non-taxable manner, right? That property hasn't generated any money for either municipality, but I thought it was interesting that of all opposition is what I'll call it, there was general support for going one step further and saying don't develop it at all.
I don't think we can put that in this summary though, because we did hear support for other approaches as well. We heard support for restaurants, for a mix of park and investment. We heard support for businesses, local business that would hire local and create local jobs. I don't think that we can honestly say that there was overwhelming support for no development at all. There was mixed support for different approaches.
I totally agree with what you're saying.
I think that first sentence that Lydia had was accurate.
I disagree entirely. That it was not. That was a biased statement to a reader that that looked at this and says, "Oh, they were very much opposed to this. Case closed." That's not necessary.
What if we just leave that part out?
Just leave it off, that first line.
I will say that a very similar thought is also reflected on the slides, on slide number 4. I would say it's appropriate to keep there because the comments on the slides are more specifically recapping comments from individual people. And that is also written on the image. So this is more like a recapping of the comments on the image, not a takeaways from the entire session. But if we're concerned about wording, I did want to say that same phrasing or similar phrasing is present on slide 4.
Should we do something to just make it known that like these are paraphrased quotes or something? Or is the title of public input clear that these are people's specific
We could
input?
say comments received.
As is.
The whole thing is formed.
Just put summarized.
Yeah.
And then that last slide is the summary.
Good. That means business is coming in. Have you considered having people staying out in the parking lot and be contacted?
And then maybe summary of key themes. Does that, for the last slide,
Makes
do you
sense.
think that's a little bit more straightforward that, these are individual comments and then here's kind of the overall summary of what the repeated themes were, or the things that had the most general consensus?
Yeah, like they were recurring ideas that kept coming up.
Actually, it just goes right. That's what happened with me.
Although I have to say that I think having removed that first sentence on this last page makes what is now the first sentence really unclear. Get-go's were acknowledged as a modern day soda fountain. What does that mean? Was that, I feel like that needs the context of, were people saying that because they thought it was a nice thing to have or not a nice thing to have? It made more sense when there was a sentence above it.
We could take that one out too. I don't know. I mean, we only heard
Really
that
say anything now.
one time. I don't know.
I'd either add more to it or take it out. That's not exactly a summary of a recurring theme.
You better check that out.
I'm fine with taking it out. I put it in to balance the first statement, and now that the first statement's gone, maybe we take that out too. Anybody have any other thoughts? Should we take that out?
Well, you know, I find that my that really, I don't know,
I'm just thinking if we take that out as well, then even the third statement, community members expressed a desire for screening from adjacent property owners. I mean, as it is, yes, they would want discrete signage, lots of landscaping, lamps and lights that are decorative, well, but light pollution control, but not necessarily gonna need that from a park or something that is put in there other than a get-go. That's just my thought.
We could add something like if a get-go development moves forward, comma, community members.
Yeah, I think we need something, yeah.
What if we, because we did also have some items in the chat, and some of the things that you captured here, Lydia, were good comments that people made that didn't really make it onto the graphics because they weren't really graphic comments. So what if this slide becomes more of a, like, you know, other discussion, or and a recap of additional discussions. And then there's a new slide that's added at the end that is the summary, and that distills it down to like the just couple of things that are actually summary items, because a number of these are not really summary items.
Okay.
You've got the point about Shenley Plaza in here too, but that was only one person. But a couple of these are actually summary of recurring themes, and then some of them are just additional context.
I feel like even presenting it as recurring or just one person is also, I just feel like it's sort of biased too. It's like, are we presenting the information or aren't we? I don't want to somehow make one person's comment less important than somebody else's just because I remembered it being a theme versus a one-off, if that makes sense. Like one person mentioned in Eaton Park. I don't want to present that equally, that, you know, Eaton Park was an overwhelming idea when
That's
only
why
one
if
person
we-
said it, but
If we make this, because I don't want to lose those comments either, if we make this a, you know, additional discussion points or additional comments received, and then if we want to do a summary slide, we keep it really simple so that we're not going into detail about what the recurring themes are. I mean, I think I would feel comfortable saying that there was sizable interest in, you actually, the way you worded it here towards the bottom, I think is nice. Overwhelmingly, we heard a huge desire for green space, community-oriented space, walking trails, dog park. I think that's true. We did hear that overwhelmingly from many people.
Why don't you make that first?
I would say that could be a summary, and that there was not much interest, or there was no notable support from the participants for a gas station, where the participants were largely concerned about the idea. I mean, I don't know how.
Well, anyway, well, that's in your home. So,
I'm comfortable keeping that very vague. I don't know about all of you, but
Well,
I think our summary items can be really minimal.
we presented it as really two paths forward, to do or not to do. And I think that's truthful, and I don't think that's biased. What I would say as a summary of that is, while there was no one who was cheerleading the development of the property for the get-go plan that was, outlined, and again, wasn't detailed, was outlined. There was quite a lot of feedback that if it were to be developed, it should have. And a lot of those features lend to those community-oriented features, right? If it were to be developed, it should have. I think that was a recurring theme. And again, there was some opposition to it being developed overall. There was some support to it being developed for a non-taxable purpose. There was a good gamut of commentary for all points in between. Obviously, the most lucrative event from a tax standpoint would be the high dollar potential from what the convenience store offers, right? They're not making money on gas. That is the most lucrative vantage point from a fiscal stewardship perspective, from a community and economic development perspective, right? From a walkability perspective, from a community blight perspective, those are all things that fall into that second. If you do develop it, if you do sell it, please make it traffic friendly, make it safer, make it those were all takeaways, I thought, that organize it well.
Perhaps what we could do for the summary is, rather than try to package it all up into a sentence, because we have the pages before with sentences of what people individually said, perhaps the summary is more kind of the values that we heard.
With that,
we heard values of community-oriented uses, community-oriented design, sustainable design, walkable features, local jobs and local jobs or local businesses. What else did we hear?
Some green space.
Mostly.
Yeah, green space. And I would say active, or like active uses or recreation, not just, people weren't just talking about green space in general. Almost everyone who was talking about green space was talking about using it for the community.
Right.
Yeah, active recreation uses in it. And that I think is fairly accurate. That's more accurate even than saying that there was huge desire for dog park, for example, right? Different people said different things about the specific elements. But those values were all reflected across the board.
Where does dog park fit in? Is it with walkable or the green space?
Probably with green space. That's not something we talked about extensively,
No.
So don't put it in the summary.
but I mean, no one opposed it. But it wasn't something that I heard anyone really talking about much.
Right, so just leave it on this screen as an additional comment.
I think that on the summary page, I'll let you finish. On the summary page, I know we intend this, but I would feel that we should put a point on it. If developed, community feedback suggests that it should incorporate. You know what I mean? Something
Yeah,
like
that's
Mhm.
good. That's good.
simply because then once again we're going to be accused of being biased. You know, I don't know if any of us are in support of it, but again, I'm vocally not, but I don't think it's fair for me to convey my bias into it.
I'm not unopposed if it's designed well.
Correct.
I honestly, what you just said was the most surprising takeaway that I had from it. Is the lack of vehement opposition to it. Alice, I hope that
I'm still on here, and
I
I
hope
think what the problem is with Zoom. Am I on?
Go ahead, Dallas.
We hear
We can hear
you.
you. We can
With
hear you.
Zoom, you are not able to really get the feel and the energy of how people really want to react to this whole property. And to see local jobs and businesses on this list, I didn't really hear anyone say that except one person saying, oh yeah, well, maybe the person, they hired this many people. Then someone came back with the numbers that are really hired through them, and it was nothing. I don't know. I didn't hear anything about really businesses going in down there. I just heard more of it being more of a community oriented piece of property. Okay.
Mhm.
All right.
So if I move the mention of creating local jobs to the additional comments, I know that was at least one person's.
It was one person only, and then that was countered with the number of jobs that are offered through the get-goes, and it was really negligible.
Mhm.
I would say the person who said, it's a good point that the concept of local was only brought up by one person. There were multiple people who talked about businesses in various different ways. I mean, even that very next comment, the Shenley Plaza comment, was talking about seeing some business and some park. Someone else was talking about some restaurants.
Right.
I'm fairly on the record too, being very adamantly opposed to this plan. I think it's such a waste of such a great parcel, but I don't own it. And
Right.
I'm trying to lead this process, at least in an unbiased way. I think it would be accurate to put in our summary somehow that there was interest from multiple people in seeing some business. And I don't know how we phrase that, because each person did say it in their own way. I didn't hear the same narrative from multiple people, but there were multiple people that got at the same point. There was some interest in some tax generating use, some restaurant, some mix of park and business. How do we phrase that it doesn't prioritize one comment over others?
Right.
But I think we did hear from multiple people that there was interest in it being
one of the
use. Sure.
maybe as a salient point to that, I would suggest that we did in the slides. I know I spoke to it. We did talk about the the income factor, right? And you know, the reality was there was no response to that. You know what I mean? Maybe it was too early in the presentation, but I don't think so. There really wasn't a response of anyone saying, "Oh yeah, we need to maximize our taxable income." I didn't hear that. I heard a lot of acceptance for, you know, businesses would be good, but we don't have to maximize our income potential. I thought that was a pretty interesting difference, right? Because I think that the reality is the maximum return on investment for the sale of the property is going to be a convenience store, because they're going to make the most money out of that parcel, so they're going to pay the most for it, right?
And we had what, about 15 people
There's
participating,
20.
maybe 20 at most.
More than that.
I mean, plus us, obviously.
Mhm. But I thought it was interesting that, you know, if it were to be developed, it wouldn't be terrible. Please pay heed to the community orientation. But what I didn't hear out of it was, we need to develop this because we really need to maximize our tax status, our income status. I think that was interesting. And I think that
Well,
goes to,
from the borough perspective, that's not what's being said, but from the school district perspective, that's for sure what's being said.
right. And we, you know, we did convey the district's point of view, and I didn't hear anyone, you know, push on that and say, yeah, that's true. We're broke. We need the money. We should really be considering the overall value. I didn't hear that. I heard a lot of a value proposition in developing it that, you know, didn't put the revenue orientation first. You know, and like I said, all the way on the other side of the spectrum, you know, I felt that when it came up, I think, you know who said it, the concept of Crafton Borough perhaps purchasing the property and securing it for a community feature. I didn't hear anyone say, "Oh my goodness, we can't walk away from that taxable revenue." You know what I mean? I didn't hear, you know, it's a real counterpoint to the school district perspective, the school district point of view. And I think that, to me, was one of the most salient points. You know, whether we may have been a little biased in how we presented or not, I did that to push you guys into having this conversation. My apologies, but I think we were able to elicit a lot of good feedback out of it.
I mean, as it stands, it's not taxable property at the moment.
Correct.
So,
and if we were to
partly of why we may not have heard people, you know, mentioning it is because it wouldn't be a change. You know, if it were to be purchased by the borough, for instance, it wouldn't be a change. So maybe people weren't up in arms about it for that reason. Usually change is the hard thing, not status quo.
I was glad that wasn't a big issue for people, but I mean, I don't remember now, we're monthly, I don't remember how many people participated, even if it was 100, and I know it wasn't that many. That's still a small percentage of the overall community. And I know that there are a lot of people who are very concerned about the high taxes here, or think that there are high taxes here. And
going up next year.
I think that, I don't really know where I'm going with that. I think that that's not really something that we can take solid takeaways from, because it was a relatively small sample.
But
and the people who participated on the phone were not too concerned about that. But I know there are plenty of people in the community that are. And if this were to continue, this conversation were to continue, I'm sure that those comments would start to come in.
We also didn't ask that question explicitly.
No.
Well, we did. We stated it was one of the driving themes on slide 5, I think it was one of the driving themes. I mean, we had a whole, you know, so what is it worth, right? We had a whole slide 13 on it.
Mhm.
No, I mean, we couldn't have taken up more real estate than what we did. And yet that didn't prove to be motivating for the people who came out. And I agree with what you're saying, Kirsten, don't get me wrong. I think that there is a whole host of other people that are out there that would take counterpoint to that. But of the people that came, we presented the economic kind of appreciable return on investment and the maximum derived income from it being this complex. And people didn't see that as a salient value. They actually went in the other direction. They went,
Yeah.
developed, something lighter, because the things that were suggested certainly can't generate the taxable revenue for the proposed, whatever they're called, ECHO would have, right?
Revenue nor initial property sale.
Yeah,
I mean, ongoing tax revenue is way different than just this initial capital.
This is all a good point to make and a good conversation to have. I guess I'm just taking it back to what we're actually doing right here with reviewing the summary. I don't think that things we didn't hear has a place on the summary, because I would say we heard from enough people to be able to summarize what we didn't hear.
But we presented it and there was no reaction. I think that's the, sometimes what's not said is what's most powerful of all. And the fact that we presented it from the economic context, there wasn't pushback on say, oh yeah, oh boy, we really do have to sell it. I mean, we're broke, we're paying too much in taxes. This can help us out. You know what I mean? We presented it and there was no reaction to it.
I would wonder, I am not familiar with everyone who was on that call, all the participants. I would wonder how many participants have children in the school district.
I know that at least 2 of the strongly opposed did or currently do have children in the school district. The 2 that were strongly opposed to it.
I think in a way, we presented a semi-pie in the sky situation to the public, and everyone was coming in with what they would want to have there. It was kind of like, in their dreams, what would you pick to have there if you could just choose? And that was part of my opposition to presenting it that way even before the meeting, but we went forward with it. I don't think you're going to get people, commenting on revenue for the school district for capital improvements when you're presenting it as, hey, what would you want to see here?
Yeah,
Tell me what you want to see here.
I also don't think we can really quantify, people didn't respond, didn't talk about that, because even though it was presented in a slide that was shown to them a half an hour before, there was a bit of distance between those. We didn't ask them specifically that question, and it does drop out of people's minds when there's, we did present the slide, but then we didn't get to the discussion portion for another 10 slides after that.
See, I would disagree with that, because there was a lot, one of the vocal opposers really dug in on that in the opposite direction, saying that this isn't the place where the school district needs to be bailed out. So I think that that was a point well made. I may happen to agree with, but that was a point well made. And
is this going in the summary then? Because I don't think that that's something that I heard strongly enough to put in the summary, but let's all weigh in, because I'm not sure where we're going with the conversation, and it's almost 9. Sorry, I don't feel good, and I'm just gonna get us back to the summary.
That's fine.
yeah, I think it's probably, to me, it's the most salient point of the summary. So I apologize, but I'm in the minority.
I don't think I don't think it should be in the summary. If we want to word something, it isn't really a comment. but we could add maybe another slide saying observations or something, and put some things in that fall in this category where the comment wasn't explicitly received, but the absence of the comment made us sit back for a minute. We can also table this. We don't have to get this out. If you want to talk about it next meeting, we can.
I move the table it.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Kirsten?
Sure.
Okay, Colton?
Yes. Table it.
Okay. I'm fine with that. So why don't we, what are your thoughts on that third slide? I can create it and then we can put our ideas in it and then talk about those observations the next time. Does that work for everyone?
Sure.
And then in the meantime, I will go back in here and make sure all of the text string comments are captured. I did reference it when I was creating this list, but I will make sure everything's captured.
We could probably, because we've added those other slides with the graphic comments, we could probably remove things that are already captured there. If you want to kind of,
Okay.
you know, not have it take up an extra slide. But there's also no harm if they're redundant, so.
From the chat, it was called like the chat string or something, right?
Yeah.
So I'll do that, especially Eric and any others. Stick in any observations. We can talk through whether we all agree on them next time. And then, yeah, everyone feel free to add to the summary if there's other recurring themes.
I'm just going to add in too, because I think I'm the only one that didn't give my opinion. And I think it is kind of important, at least, you know, since everybody else has said it, that we know how we all feel about it. Personally, I'm on the same page as Lydia. I'm not, you know, thrilled. I mean, I'm not ecstatic about it, but it's not going to break my heart. And I'm not going to not want to drive down Steuben Street ever again because there's a gate go down there, you know. I mean, you know, I can see both sides of it. And that's why, unfortunately, I'm not a good person to vote for anything political, because I can really see both sides of those things. So that's just where I'm at.
Not
It's
a
a
bad
good
thing
place to be. There are two sides to just about everything.
I completely agree.
Yeah.
Planning Commission, we only have so much, our opinions only matter so much anyway, so it's a good place to be.
Exactly. That's what I figured.
Correct.
Okay, so we'll table this discussion. Do we want to create a date for the fourth workshop? Do we want to push to have it before the end of the year? Or are we thinking more like a January timeframe?
The fourth workshop that we agreed to was about the parks. I don't think
No, it was about
No, it's
Crafton
Crafton.
the line down.
Boulevard sewer separation.
Yeah,
We can do it in December if we want to keep that moving, but I personally would prefer to do it in January. I think the holidays are busy for everyone, participants included, and I think they're more successful when we take a little time to prepare properly.
And I think you'll have more attendance after the holidays than you will now. I know my schedule is jam-packed between now and Christmas personally, so
agreed.
I'll make it work, but I think you'd get more attendance after the fact.
I would
Okay.
say after the 15th of January, that 24th-ish or whatever that Wednesday would be.
Agreed.
Do we want to do it after
agree.
after the meeting?
Yeah,
So the 27th?
27 sounds good.
yep.
Okay. I will have the website updated to reflect that it'll be in January. And I can coordinate, we're pretty set on that date. I can coordinate the advertisement.
Yes.
Okay.
The 27th of January, they don't do Super Bowls then or anything like that, right? There's no
On a
president.
Wednesday? Aren't they
Yeah, the
Sundays?
Super Bowl is February 3rd or 4th, somewhere in that area.
I don't see anything that would be like calendared in our way, like there's a presidential debate or something like that that we forgot about or something. We're good.
I think the 20th is inauguration day, isn't it? So Biden will be
The
in.
only thing I would think is that since we are meeting again in December, and that's still plenty of time to advertise it, if we want to hold the date but not advertise it until next month, if we're, concerned about just making sure that we're
I'm
avoiding conflicts.
I'm fully comfortable with January 27th.
I'm good with leaving it for now in our minds and saving it for December to finally decide. I think if you start putting it out there too early, people are going to forget anyway.
Okay. I will have Charisma update the website because right now it says December TBD. And I'll hold on actually getting it formally advertised through Savvy Citizen and newspaper until December. I'll set a calendar reminder. Okay. Anybody else on the workshop for planning topic? And then I'll open it up to citizen comments.
Bill's here.
Anyone still on here?
I'm still here, but I commented.
Thank you for your
Thanks, Alice. Patty, do you have any comments? Take that as a no. Phil, I see you joined. One thing we weren't sure of earlier in the meeting was whether the multimodal grant went in. Can you just explain quickly where that is?
Yes, actually, let me turn my screen on here. Hello.
Hey, Phil.
So we opted not to submit the application in this year. We're going to be putting in a multi-municipal plan in, and I actually have something to show you all this evening around that concept. The reason why we didn't submit was because our contacts at PennDOT said due to the funding issues that have affected the legislature and these different programs, that this year wouldn't be a great year for the submittal. So we opted not to, and that gives us time to work with the city of Pittsburgh Council on tuning up some of these projects that we have going in the ground and working on some of the project on their side of the border, and then also working with Ingram to pursue the same on that side of the town. But I do have something I'd like to show you all, and hopefully you guys can see that your influence in the process has been taken into account here. So if you'd like to see my screen, I can show that to you.
Sure, if we can keep it under 5 minutes. It's already been a little bit of a long meeting.
Yep, no problem.
Cool. I just stopped sharing, so you should be able to share.
Let me see if I can. I think I can share. Can you guys see my screen?
Yes.
All right. Let me go over to my. So this is the area that we're going to be working on in 2021. And I'll zoom in here. And do you see the PDF of this streetscape
Yes.
plan?
Yeah,
Yep.
All right, this isn't final, this is the concept, but this is what we're working on. So Alice, I think you're still here.
Yes,
Your family's property that you sold to the district is listed here. And this is where Crafton Elementary's new parking lot's going in with all the stormwater infrastructure. And there's going to be quite a bit of landscaping and other neat things. And President of the school board, Jim Schreiber, gave me some bricks that he and his family salvaged from the demolition of some of those buildings there. So we're actually going to try to incorporate some of those materials into the landscape. But if you see here, we're going to be doing all new intersections over here at Noble and Crafton Boulevard. And then in front of the school, we'll be putting in some indentations for parking. We're going to be putting in some tree islands, bump outs, tree pits, however you want to put it. But we're actually going to do the inverted. So the sidewalk is on the outside and the tree is on the inner side. We're going to work on that concept to protect the trees, because we've noticed in working with the Shade Tree Commission that the trees that are on the street line, they get in the way of the power lines when they get to maturity, and then they also they don't make it to maturity half the time because of the salting of the roads. And obviously the very mature growth that we have in the neighborhoods, were before we had the types of treatment for the roads during winter months, etc. But if you see here,
I would hope that
Go
you
ahead.
consider the fact that you're not asking children to come in a line of traffic before you expect a tree to. I would think that in front
correct.
of the school itself, you would go the opposite way.
Yeah.
Than the others.
Right, correct. And they're looking at bollards and different things as well. So that's something that, the Shade Tree Commission, the engineer, are currently working on, because as you point out, Eric, there's a lot to consider, because just for that point, there was a little tension between the Shade Tree Commission and the engineer on making sure that people are protected from any kind of vehicular traffic. But if you move up here, again, this is just a conceptual drawing that they put together. I'm going to zoom out. There's, again, some speed calming controls on island put in here, or extension of the island, landscaping controls. The whole idea is to actually reclaim on Crafton Boulevard where the old trolley line was, because when they took the trolley lines out, they really didn't do anything up the street here in Crafton Boulevard, and this is all the way up to Clearview Extension. So there's some permit issues over here because we have to work with PennDOT, so we're putting in for those applications. But again, the idea is to make it more pedestrian friendly, speed calming, and to really redo this stretch while we have this whole area under excavation for the storm sewer separation project. So
One comment, if I may, can we add a crosswalk over at the where the trail starts? There's one to cross from near McMunn over, but then you actually still have to cross another street to get to the trail. And there's really not a,
up here,
yeah, that right there.
yeah, they're actually looking at that. So yes,
Okay.
yep, because the whole thing is we actually have to work with PennDOT on this whole little stretch here down to Dinsmore. But yeah, that's going to be improved. So I just thought you all would like to see this. These are some of the concepts. We're not going to just put it back exactly the way it was. We're going to try to make improvements, slow down the traffic. There's concepts actually to change some of the we're not going to be able to put a signal in here, but we can consider different options. I mean, there's a lot of back and forth between some folks about whether or not a stop sign is warranted, and there's a lot of confusion about what is the state route versus not, and there's going to be a lot of different traffic pattern changes. So
I just want to say, Phil, thank you so much for sharing this. This is really nice to see. We can definitely, I mean, just about that point about the stop sign, even just better road configuration will already help make that more clear. But the bigger point I want to make is that this was actually going to be our next workshop. This was the area we were going to look at that January workshop. So it's nice to know that this is happening, and we may want to reconsider how we format that workshop in January. So I think it's good that we hold off on advertising it until we meet again in December. And in the meantime, Phil, maybe I'll give you a call in the next few weeks and we can talk a bit more about where this is at so that we, are prepared in January. We were going to have a workshop on this exact area.
Oh, all right, great. Well, thank you. And I just wanted to share that with you because we have about 6 months until shovels go into the ground. So let's work together.
Way to go. Thanks, Phil.
Yep, thank you. Stop share.
Sign off.
I'm just gonna say, did we lose Lydia?
Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna motion to adjourn. Were there any other citizens' comments? I'm gonna motion to adjourn. Anyone care to second?
Here's
I'll
some.
second.
Yes.
I'll second it.
Lydia,
Sorry about that. I got kicked out.
we have a motion to adjourn. There have been no more citizen comments and a second. So if you'd like to, you're welcome to.
Yes, please. I will call it to end at 9:11.
Thanks all.
Okay,
Good night,
sounds good.
everybody.
Thank you. Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy
Happy Thanksgiving,
Thank
guys.
you.
Thank you. Wait a minute.